Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conscious Conversion. Today, I have an extremely exciting guest, Lee Harris, a globally acclaimed energy intuitive and transformation guide who offers grounded, practical teachings focused on helping conscious, intuitive, and sensitive people heal, thrive, and live a better life. His book, Energy Speaks, became an instant bestseller in March 2019, and his intuitive messages reach hundreds of thousands of people every month via his free and highly popular monthly energy update videos. With over 100 audio recordings and online courses for navigating a soul-led life with clarity, empowerment, and optimism, Lee also mentors creatives, healers, and entrepreneurs on how to bring their gifts and talents into the world via his Impact the World program. His annual Soul Magic retreats and workshops held around the globe are adventures into the deepest aspects of living, loving, and awakening. As a musician and artist himself, Lee deeply believes in the power of our creativity for healing and incorporates sound healing and creativity into many of his works. Thank you so much for being here, Lee, on this interview and on the planet.
Oh, thank you. I'm really happy to be here. As I was just saying to you before we got started, I really love your topic, and I'm really passionate about more people being able to embrace what it is they do and bring it out into the world, because I've been doing it for almost 20 years publicly, and I wish there had been more around earlier to help me, because then I wouldn't have had to, kind of go the slow, complicated route.
I understand. And when you're sort of into the spiritual leadership, marketing, maybe more and more so nowadays, but back 20 years ago, marketing was not top of mind.
No. And actually, I would say it was an aversion. So for me, I began working in this field in 2004, but I never thought I would. I was headed into the music industry, or I was trying to. That was where I was going. And I heard the voice of my guides when I was 22 years old. And that wasn't something I was searching for. I was really into self-growth. I was really into metaphysics. But being a channeler was not like something I was seeking. And it also was very inconvenient to your public image, because it wasn't like cool. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, oh, he's a channeler. Because a lot of people go, oh, that's weird. So I didn't want to have to deal with that side of it. But I found very quickly that I was helping all my friends with messages and intuitions I was getting about their life, and it was having an impact. And finally, one of them, who was a healer, said, "You've got to do this for work. Let me send you out to my newsletter." So I didn't think anyone would come, but I started doing private sessions. And the point of the story is, if I flash forward, that was 2004. In 2008, I went to see Esther Hicks live, and I was 2 years into holding my own workshops. And Jerry Hicks, her then husband, who's since passed, stood there for the first 15 minutes at the beginning of their event, selling all their products, like telling us about what books they had, what CDs they had. And I, as a Brit and as someone with spiritual beliefs, was kind of like, he can't do that. We've all paid, we've paid $200 to be here for 6 hours or whatever it was. And he spends the first 15 minutes upselling us. But you know what? I went out to that table and I spent about $120. I loved all the things I bought. And it was, at the time, it was a judgment of mine. But then as my own work grew, and as there were things I wanted to do, like I wanted to be able to say, yes, I'll come to Norway and do a workshop. But those things cost, and booking a hotel. I realized if you don't stand behind your offerings and be willing to tell people about them, what you're doing can't grow, and you can't help people find the things that are helping other things. So I had a real change in my brain around, I would say, about 7-8 years ago, where I realized I had to stand a bit more for what I did. And I would say since then, the growth of everything I do and the amount of people that get helped by it has just gone through the roof, really, compared to before.
Well, thank goodness. And, I do see money as part of an energy exchange, right? And you're putting so much energy into what you do and what you're offering people. And, there needs to be that balance, or, it's not going to work for anybody involved.
Yeah, and money is a really tricky thing because most of us are quite wounded around money, or have been in the past, or were raised to be. Our world has this crazy imbalance around poverty and who has resources. So already we're living in an imbalanced planet. But the real bottom line for me is nobody's ever forcing you to buy anything. So I actually find it comical now when I see not just my work, but anybody else's work, where people are annoyed that people who write comments are actually annoyed that someone is talking about their book at the end of a free piece of content, because I know that that piece of content was not free. It wasn't only their time, they may have paid designers, video editors. So I kind of find it comical now, because nobody is putting their hand into your wallet or your purse, taking your credit card out and swiping it for you. It's like I'm not annoyed at the people who sell me the things that I know I value. I'm happy to give the money for the things that are going to enhance my life. So I think it's an interesting time to be alive in that way, when you look at all the internet stuff that's kicking off.
Yeah, I think people are coming around more and more to the integration of sort of spiritual leadership and, marketing, or, having the need to put yourself out there on social media and all of those. And I just want to say, I freaking love how you integrate music and singing with your offerings and meditations. It's so gorgeous and moving, and anybody who's listening should go check it out, because it's just stunning.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's really nice to bring it all together, and that's the other aspect. I think when we talk about finance, I want to pay my people well.
Exactly.
And I want to bring people. When I do events, there have been a couple of places I've had to turn down because they take a lot of money from your tuition fee, and then they charge people to stay there. I don't want to just turn up and sit in a chair by myself. I want to bring someone who's going to do movement. I want to bring musicians, and I want to be able to pay those people well. So I think you also have to align your values around where you go and what you say yes to. That's another big piece that I've learned over the years.
Absolutely. And one of my mantras is in alignment with that, which is, fill my cup so that I may fill the cups of others. And that's, I like to pay my team well. I like to buy locally and all of those things. I mean, So I have a question for you. Well, go for it. You tell me first.
Say, the truth is, unless you have some personality disorders or chronic issues, you will become more generous the more you have. Unless you're somebody who's got narcissism going on, or various wounded behaviors, you will just become more generous the more you're able to receive for yourself. That's just the universal law. So yeah, we should never be afraid to be ambassadors of abundance, because we will pass it on.
I love that. That's beautiful. Ambassadors of abundance. You have a lot of offerings around abundance, don't you?
Yeah, in fact, that phrase ambassadors of abundance was given to me by my guides. It's the opening channel to a course I did called Abundance Upshift, which is available on my site. And it's basically a video course where you dig deep around your own ideas, values, around abundance, to change it and to become more of an ambassador of abundance in the world.
Beautiful. That leads me to my question, and that is, what impact do you want to make in the world in the next 5 years?
It's the same one I think I've had all along, but I feel like we're just at the point where we're doing it more. I've always wanted to be able to fund high quality, free content for people. And when I say high quality, I don't just mean the teaching, I mean the presentation, the level of artistry, the class. So I think this is really brilliant time. I was just at an event on Saturday, or had an event of my own, and I was saying 20 years ago, we had to go to the spiritual bookstore. We had to buy the book. We had to buy buy the workshop. We've got an amazing abundance of free resources on the planet now. And for me, the most exciting thing about the money that comes into our business is what I can spend. And so I can authorize, around $800 an episode for this new show that I've just put out that started last week, called Impact the World. And that's free to everybody. They can watch the video, they can see the podcast, but I can use our company resources to produce a really high quality offering that hopefully is inspiring and educating people. So the next 5 years for me is really how much can we continue to expand offering not just my work, but the work of others. So ultimately for me, the vision is a bit of a network. But I take it very slowly because with business or with the kind of entity that my company is, because it's serving a lot of people now, it's its own baby. And it will tell us when it's ready for the next step. So you have to listen and kind of be patient with your own visions and ideas and desires, but pay attention to when it's time. It's like, oh, now is the time we can do this. Great. So that's kind of my long-term goal.
Beautiful. And how do you stay aligned and ready to serve your audience? Like, do you have any rituals or routines or anything that you do to stay sort of in alignment with your people?
Yeah, well, I would say that the thing that really helps me is meeting them. So meeting them when we do events, that's really key. Meeting my people, but also we have a monthly group called The Portal, and it's probably my favorite thing to do every month. I get online and do 90-minute energy transmission, Q&A. So I get a really strong sense of what's going on for our Portal community and then in the wider world through comments and things. But for me, keeping aligned, it really is routine. I like routine, and I've noticed when I lose the routine, I lose my energy balance a bit. So I have a routine here at home now that when I'm not traveling, I work out 6 mornings a week with a trainer who's awesome. And I started working with Jenny about 1.5 years ago, and it was an investment in myself. It was an investment in my fitness, and it was an investment in my energy. And so I have that consistently every single morning. So I go and do that. I have a few hours that's about building myself up, and then I start work around 11:30. So routine for me is what keeps me alive, and making sure that I have enough quiet time, especially during busy periods where there's lots going on with multiple people. So I continue to get more disciplined and more rigorous around understanding what I need, and not getting too hijacked by the entity that is the business, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, because the business it's a medium, but it's secondary to what you're truly doing in the world.
Yeah. And also it's always, the business could always, require something, and the people that the business is serving could always require something. So it's knowing, oh, okay, this is the oxygen moment for me. This is the moment that we step back. So for example, my COO was here this past weekend. He lives in New Jersey. We went to Disneyland on Tuesday. I'm a huge Star Wars fan, so I was really curious to see this new ride. And we still spoke about work a few times, but it was really cool to like go, hey, we live 90 minutes from Disneyland. I'd never been, neither had my husband, who also works in the company. So we went to Disneyland. So little things like that too. It's like, we're gonna go dark on a Tuesday, and we'll be back.
Yeah.
You know, we'll be back to work tomorrow. But so yeah, being creative ways to break routine and to kind of go off piste, I call it, to kind of, for me, that's important because I have, my nature requires freedom. So it's that paradox of being routined with the work, but I need to feel that I have enough freedom going on at the same time. So yeah, it's an interesting puzzle to work out.
As is life.
Yeah, right. Oh yeah, life will keep presenting you with interesting curveballs. Yeah.
So what you're doing has been working. Your reach is constantly growing, and you know you seem to be doing really well in terms of like reaching a pretty big audience, from what I can tell, and looking at your social media and your Amazon reviews and all of these things. How do you stay consistent with your marketing efforts, given all the other things that you need to do?
Yeah, I think, you know, at the moment, like if you looked at my work right now, in 2020, you'll see about 8 different departments all intersecting, working together. But if we go back 6-7 years, we may have had 2 of those things going. So we had our Portal members community, and we used to post quotes on Facebook that were written. You know, it was like written paragraphs.
Of your own.
So, yeah. And unusually channeled back then. So as things have grown, it has just been about making sure that the biggest piece was actually making sure that each part of what we do has some kind of through line. So for example, I have an art director, a designer, he's awesome, and he works on all the projects. So each project is different. Like if you're engaged on Facebook, you're going to be seeing a lot of quote cards that are his visuals that we worked with to get aligned with what are the values of what we're doing, what are the values of the work. He's a really spiritual guy, so he totally gets it. But then if we move over to the portal, it's really taking notice of what is the portal, my members club, doing for people. It's a sanctuary for sensitives. It's support. It's giving people what they need each month. So paying attention to what our audience were telling us they received from the community, and then really kind of funneling more of that in there. So the more I started to understand what it was doing for us, the more I started to really try and strengthen those elements. So we stay consistent because we have a rhythm and a routine. We have deadlines. So I have to hit the first of the month with my energy update. And there are 11 of us in the team, an international team, who we work together, and we use something called Basecamp, which we started using about 2 years ago, and that was a game changer because when you've got so many people and so many projects, where is one centralized place that everybody can go and see what they're involved in? So I would say we're consistent because we've built each of those, say, 8 arms of the business one at a time. And now it's just that we've got them running and we've understood what each element is. So right now our new thing is the show, Impact the World. So we're Thursday, 4 days into the launch of that. And, we're right now really grounding that template. And then that will just become another offering that we kind of automate, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think you touched on this already, but how do you stay authentic as you bring in help? If you've got such a growing team all over the world, all in service of sort of your message, how do you stay authentic while they're representing you?
You can feel it in the values of the people that you work with. So for example, the couple of times that we've worked with team members that we didn't stay with, there were issues in the values usually. So I remember we hired someone who was very talented for a brief period of time, who was really focused on business growth. But it was clear that possibly we had 2 or 3 areas we all crossed over. And then there was a way that this person worked that was wildly different to us. And they wanted me to script my videos and to use certain what they called selling points. And that was and I was like, this doesn't feel right. So I tried one. And as soon as I tried it, because I just speak freely, I don't use scripts. I was like,
you're channeling.
No.
How can you?
It's just, I was like, no, this isn't right. So we stopped that collaboration. So you can feel it. You can feel when the person that you're with is aligned with your values. And, we have a few different values in the company. For us, kindness is really important. So my motto in the company is talent is everywhere. Attitude is gold. So we've worked with some talented people whose attitude was either very different to the rest of the team, or who perhaps would push against certain members of the team and was slowing down workflow. So those were people that we weren't able to continue working with. So I'm really proud to say that everybody in my team is the kind of person that you would have a really nice sit down chat with. And those core human values are in every team member. And that to me is when you know that your work is aligned with your team's values, because really that's what the work is about.
I love that. And I have a similar thing where it's all of my clients and all of my team members. I want us to all be deeply, deeply aligned. So that's a beautiful thing. I love that.
The other thing I'll just throw on the table is you've got to make sure that the job is serving the person. Yeah, because I've had a few drive-bys, and that's okay. Like if you can feel that someone's there and they're like, well, I'm on for bigger things, then unless you're all in real agreement about the temporary nature of the job, it's actually really important to let that person go off and do bigger things rather than have them be slightly frustrated that what they're doing for you is not really what is serving their life right now. And of course, you know, you don't know whether anybody is still going to be in your company years down the line. You know, you probably will be, but but actually that's really important, making sure that the person is in harmony with the job at this point in their life in a way that's really true for them, because that can be problematic too.
Absolutely. Yeah, I check in with my team. I try to regularly check in with them on like their joy factor. Like, is this joyful? I don't want any hint of resentment. And the second that there's any hint of resentment, I want to know about it and figure out what we need to tweak.
That's perfect. That's the way. That's the way. Yeah.
I mean, it's good for business as well as life. And, you know,
because the vibration of what you're doing is felt. And it's not to say there aren't tough days or days that, you know, one or some of you aren't feeling it. But if those days are very rare, you're good. If those days are regular, they can bring down the vibration very quickly.
Absolutely. Totally agree. Love it. So you've been doing really well organically, but you did start running ads at some point in your business. What got you interested in making sort of that transition to doing paid ads?
I think it was around 2016. We did a North American tour. And what was really clear to me was, and this was before Facebook has gone the way it's gone now, which is like hyper, what they call pay to play. But even then, it was amazing that if you would just put even $25 or $20 behind something that maybe had a product at the end of it. So for us, it was these long paragraphs that were extracted from audio products. It was like, oh, wow, that actually four more people than would normally have bought that audio product for $15 bought the product. So, okay, so that was $60 for the business and it cost us $25. But more importantly, it got seen by so many more people. So it also has a more indirect effect of growing the work. So actually for us, Facebook was working and was actually a really great way to reach people. And it was helping spread the message. So my philosophy was always, well, I'm happy to invest money provided there is a return. And so that's kind of the way we've done it over the last few years. And there's always a line. You have to be careful because you don't want somebody who's on your Facebook page to be hammered over the head by something that you're doing. Yet at the same time, there are certain key things you do in a year that you know you have to reach people with. So that's where the adverts versus boosted posts came in really handy, because you can make sure that somebody who has already perhaps purchased that product isn't seeing those ads over and over again and kind of, you know, being driven crazy. So there's that side of it too that I found fascinating.
It's so funny because before we started this interview officially and hit record, you were saying, I don't know anything technical, but you just touched on something very lovely and technical about Facebook ads, which is exclusion audiences and how important those are.
Absolutely. Well, I say I don't know anything technical. I used to be more hands-on with the Facebook advertising years ago, but now we have this great guy, Nick. So I meet with him. So I do know the basics, but he's the one who's like really on top of the trends and the keywords and things like that right now. But we have meetings about what we're running. But the other thing that I will say that was really important, I started putting money behind my energy updates about 3 years ago. And at first I didn't put much behind them. You know, it might have been $50 or $100 just to see. But now we'll spend about $1,000 to $1,500 a month on the energy updates between Facebook and between YouTube, because that's my biggest free offering. It's the most popular thing we do. And at the end of it, I also, for anyone who stays tuned in on the video, I share what we're doing, like what products we've got that have just come out. And of course, people can just switch off if they don't want to see that because they know it's coming. But actually, it just made sense to really invest in what is our biggest outreach for the business. And that definitely helped.
Mm-hmm. So what's your next level? How are you planning to reach and impact even more people in the coming years?
Gosh, that's a good question because I've just had my head down on like, details around the aesthetics of the podcast and the design. And so that's I'm gonna have to ask myself that question. I think honestly, for me, I love working with change makers, entrepreneurs, creatives. They became a huge part of my one-on-one mentoring work over the last few years. And so I started creating more work for them. And that's really what the Impact the World show is about. So I feel like we have just set sail on producing a show. And this is the first incarnation of that show. But I think as time goes on, I think the show format is a really great way to go. I love doing live work, but I love how you can reach people all over the world instantly with video. So I think we're going to go a bit more in the direction of the show and see what that leads to for us. And I also think we're going to do a bit more work helping people who want to put their creativity, their art, their healing, their wisdom out into the world to help others, helping them do that, because I find that really juicy. I love watching people, because I have to say, Brendan Bashard was really helpful to me in 2016. I was considering stopping my work. I was considering walking away from channeling and spirituality. I was just a little burned out. And I went to his Experts Academy. And actually, the irony is, I went to Experts Academy thinking it might re-energize me. A friend gave me a free ticket, I think. And actually, what happened was I watched him on stage and I was like, I want to do my version of that. It actually lit me up because I was already doing it privately. So it took me about 1.5 years to come out with Impact the World, the 5-day training. But 1.5 years later, we had our first sold out training for entrepreneurs, and we have our next one in Scottsdale, Arizona, first week of April this year.
I love it. That means we share a mission, like trying to amplify the impact of people who are doing amazing work in the world.
Totally.
I think entrepreneurship is this beautiful beacon of light that can make real change.
It is. And don't you think it's so new? Like I never imagined this could be my career. Like I thought I would be employed by a record company or maybe a book publisher, but I never thought so. So I think it's still really new for all of us. So for those of us that have had some experience in it, but perhaps also have a passion around helping others with it, I think it's brilliant.
Totally agree. So tell me, Lee, how can people find you?
So my website is leeharrisenergy.com because we're all things energy. And you can find me on YouTube. My YouTube channel is Lee Harris Energy. I also have a music website, leeharrismusic.com. But if you go to leeharrisenergy.com, you'll find it all there. You can kind of find all the things.
Beautiful. Final question for you. How do you stay so focused and aligned so that you're not spreading yourself too thin and missing out on what matters the most, like your own spirituality, self-care, and personal growth?
Well, I think that's a constant challenge. Like I wish I could say to you, oh yeah, 365 days a year. No, I, like anybody, I go through periods. And, we just went through a period with my family, actually, where there's a lot of stuff going on inside my family, multiple members of my family going through major crisis. And I found that really challenging because of my balance, I will say. And I think that's everybody these days. I think you're getting balance tests one way or another on planet Earth right now. So for me, it's actually ingraining that if I am stressed or overwhelmed, that is not normal and I have to do something about it. Doesn't mean there aren't logical reasons I'm stressed or overwhelmed, but that I shouldn't keep running through stress and overwhelm, which I definitely would have done years ago. These days, I catch the state once I notice the state, or if I notice my husband's reaction to my, I'm like, oh, he's, so, and we do that for each other, me and Steven. So, I know that I have to, it goes back to freedom for me, regardless of what's going on in the world or in my life. If I feel incapable of taking 30 minutes by myself in a room or in the garden, something's off. And I've got myself trapped in servitude or enmeshed in things like, with the family stuff. I got very enmeshed in it all, and I had to kind of step out of it to kind of realize that I'd lost my balance. So Yeah, it's a constant fine tuning, but it's being able to say no and knowing
Mm,
that no one else outside you or no other need outside you is so important that it should supersede your ability to keep your balance regularly. Otherwise, you can't serve anybody.
absolutely. And if you are, and I think we all have the potential to be channels,
I think
the
we
more that
are.
we can, yeah, the more that we can stay in alignment and keep that channel clear, the better. And I think that you speak to that beautifully,
Yeah,
recognizing.
I think there are many levels of channeling. Like there's the full-on channeling, like channeling guides,
Yeah.
entities. But I think all of us are channeling our lives all the time and
Mm.
tuning in on each other and impulses and inspiration and information that we then convert and take into the next part of our day. So yeah, I love hearing you describe it that way.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show. It was such a pleasure having this conversation with you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was lovely to be here and good luck with all you're doing. It's fantastic.
Oh, back at ya.